It's Katie Crysdale here from Lakeview Aquatic Consultants. Welcome back, or welcome if you are new here. In today's video, I'm continuing on with the National Lifeguard series, talking about submerged victim rescues. A quick reminder, although I am a National Lifeguard as well as a National Lifeguard instructor, a National Lifeguard instructor trainer, none of my personal opinions shared in this video are in any way endorsed by Life Saving Society of Alberta and the Northwest Territories or any Canadian branch. The reason I am making this video is I was at a swimming pool back in December doing in-service training, and one of the activities we were working on was physical removals of different victim types. During that practice, I showed my toe grip transition technique. It's not something I invented. It's something I first learned when I was in Bronze Medallion, Bronze Cross in Ontario back in 2003, 2004. In the process of looking to see if I had any video footage I could use to make a video about that, I realized I had plenty of video footage to talk about submerged victim rescues. That is what I'm going to be doing today. I am sharing strategies for how you can improve your submerged victim rescues, whether you are participating in a National Lifeguard original course, a National Lifeguard recertification, whether you're trying out for a job via a wet screen interview, or whether you simply wanted to be a better lifeguard on the pool deck, this video is for you. I am going to be referencing the National Lifeguard Award Guide. A quick reminder, this is the criteria for the National Lifeguard program. There may be small regional differences branch to branch, province to province, but generally speaking, the National Lifeguard program in Canada is a national program, so the program standards are fairly consistent pool to pool, province to province. Another quick reminder, this video is focused on the National Lifeguard pool option in the award guide. The submerged victim rescue is its own lesson plan, it's its own award guide item, and it's its own skill on the test sheet. As of 2026, the current edition of the award guide and the program, it does have management of a submerged non-breathing victim listed as item 11B in the National Lifeguard pool option. The purpose of the item is to ensure lifeguards have the necessary judgment, knowledge, skill, and fitness to rescue a submerged non-breathing victim. The learning outcome is the candidate demonstrates the skill and fitness required to recover a submerged non-breathing victim, transfer them to a point of safety, and perform 10 cycles of CPR. This demonstration does need to be completed with a submerged non-breathing victim. That can be a classmate, another human, a mannequin, or a combination of mannequins.
So this is going to be an incomplete demo because I'm not guarding on the deck. I don't signal and I'm too close to my victim for this to be realistic, but it's still an example worth showing you. So I went down and I brought him to the surface and I immediately maintained his airway open, and I have 2 points of contact. So you can see that I have a point of contact on my shoulder with his head as well as my hand under his right armpit, and then I'm egg beatering and moving to the side. I'm immediately putting his armpits up on the edge of the pool because his upper body is pretty heavy. I'm pushing down on the forearms as I get out of the pool. It's not very dignified, but it works. Then I'm immediately going to spin him around, and you'll notice on the right hand side I'm going to use my toes to help stabilize him as my third hand. Meanwhile, I'm threading my arms through under his armpit and grabbing on his wrists. I'm going to bob gently and lift with my legs, not my back, drag him back away from the pool edge, and then lay his head down very carefully so he does not get hurt.
These are the items you need to complete in order for the rescue to be marked as successful, i.e. a pass. We have quick recognition and immediate response. So we want to see some sort of signal as a lifeguard that you are noticing there is an issue in your zone. That could be a whistle tweet, that could be an arm signal, that could be a hand signal, whatever that looks like. When in doubt, get it out, go check on the victim. An immediate response basically means you're going into the pool or you're calling for backup or you're doing both simultaneously because you're going to be leaving your position, your zone coverage, and you need someone else to back you up or close the pool. The second must-see item is safe and appropriate entry with or without an aid. Depending on the pool environment, you have your ladder approach, talk, throw, reach, wade, row, swim, tow, and carry. If the person is submerged, you're likely going to need to have to get into the pool, approach them, tow and carry them to the wall. However, I do want to remind you as a national lifeguard that you are not required to go to the highest level of risk. You're not required to go from 0 to 60 instantaneously. You do want to assess the situation. And as a national lifeguard instructor, if I'm assessing you, I want to see that you're using critical thinking and analysis of the pool environment, the victim type, victim location, your skill set, your guard team, your zone in deciding how to approach the victim. That could be with or without an aid. Obviously, in lifeguarding, we always advocate for taking an aid wherever possible, but it is very common for people to not have an aid, forget an aid, for it to drift away from them in a rescue, for it to be insufficient or not appropriate to the scenario. The next must-see item is a quick approach and descent. Reminder, with your approach, you have to balance speed versus accuracy. Maybe speed means head in because you see the person is submerged, or for accuracy, that means a head-up approach. Whether that is a head-up breaststroke, a head-up front crawl, and then you are going to descend over the victim with your surface dives. You have two types of surface dives that help with accuracy. You have your head first surface dive and your foot first surface dive. I definitely tend to do a head first surface dive because I approach, I pike, and then I go down. At that point, we need to make sure that we have a firm grip on the victim wherever they're located. We do want to protect the airway as much as possible. And in my personal opinion, we need to have two firm, secure points of contact. This is not listed as must-see items, so this is where I'm clearly identifying my preference as an instructor and a trainer. I want to see that you have a good, secure grab on the victim. How you do that is up to you as long as you're not hurting the person. That could be a football grab of the head. That could be double arm carry. That could be double armpit carry. There's many different options in terms of how you grab the victim, but you need to be able to ascend with them to the surface. And to get that momentum, I personally would recommend a squat and pop off the bottom of the pool if that is available to you. So getting that rocket launch off the bottom, taking a second, putting your feet down, that's going to make it much easier for you to carry the victim up to the surface, because in a real life scenario, that submerged victim is static in the water column. When we practice with our colleagues and our friends, it's harder to simulate because often they try and help us by not going all the way down into the water column. But in a real life scenario, if somebody has been submerged for an extended period of time or they're quite heavy, they are going to be down there in the bottom of the pool, and we are going to need a big push off to help us. Or that would be where an aid could come in handy. Something like a rescue tube that may help propel you to the surface because of the buoyancy of the item.
Let's look at another take where I'm waiting close by my victim. He's going to go down. He's going to pretend to be submerged. He doesn't go down very far, unfortunately, but I'm still able to simulate bringing him to the surface, opening up his airway, and I'm doing a double armpit carry, and I'm bringing him to the closest wall where it's going to be possible for me to take him out and do CPR. That other wall is very, very short. It's hard to see there. So I get his armpits up on the edge, his arms up on the edge. I'm boosting him from behind with my legs, and then I'm waiting for assistance.
From there, the next must-see item is the quickest route to a location where drowning resuscitation may be effectively initiated and complications managed. One of the most common things I see in National Lifeguard original classes is people don't necessarily work smart, they work hard, and they take the victim back to the very beginning of the rescue, i.e. they swim them all the way back to the wall where they jumped in instead of going over to the side. You want to go to the closest point where you can remove the person from the pool. There does need to be deck space to be able to perform the rescue. That will include CPR or first aid treatment, but that does not mean you have to swim them all the way back to the shallow end or from wherever you entered into the pool. That quickest location may be even continuing onward. So if you started in the deep end, maybe you're swimming further ahead to the shallow end. It is going to depend on the setup of the facility. Does your aquatic facility have a focal point with equipment? Do you have other guards arriving as your backup to assist you? Making that decision in the moment is completely fine, but I do tend to see newer guards with less experience. They have a tendency to be homing pigeons and to go back from whence they came, and that may not be helpful. From there, the next must see item is safe and effective removal with assistance. You are not required to do the removal on your own. You will see in my demo videos that I do the removal on my own because I'm very comfortable with the size of the person on which I'm practicing. I also have 20 years of experience as a national lifeguard at this point, and it's not suggesting that I'm in any way uniquely strong or a better lifeguard than anyone else. I have fine tuned over the years of practice the mechanics of where I need to lift and pull and grab to make the lift as easy as possible. It's very important you lift with your legs, with your butt down, starting in a squat. Please do watch that you're not lifting from your back.
Okay, friends, we're going to watch this twice. So the first time is regular speed. I'm spinning him around. My right hand foot is shoved in his armpit. My left arm is threaded through his armpit, down, grabbing his wrist. And then the right hand side, I'm grabbing also on his wrist by threading through the armpit. Now I want you to watch the same thing again at half speed and see how you would do it for yourself. It does take some practice, but the main thing is to get your foot squarely shoved into the armpit, kind of like a lever, so that he doesn't fall in.
Do use help if it's available to you. Do not try and be a hero and get hurt. That is not a requirement. Any National Lifeguard instructors insisting you must rescue on your own, that is not correct in the current program standard. Certainly back in the day, in the early 2000s, when I first was a lifeguard, there were old instructors and trainers who were more hardcore and they insisted that we do stuff solo, but that is not a current program standard. You're going to see that I spend a lot of time and care making sure the victim is placed on the edge of the pool in a way that they're not going to slip back in. If you can, to get their armpits up on the edge, if not their armpits, getting their elbows further into the deck, and then I'm able to push down or grab onto the wrists. It's very important we are not pushing down directly on the forearm bones. Those are very fragile, and it would be possible to actually break somebody's forearm bones. Wrists are going to be safe to hold on to. You definitely can climb out of the pool holding onto the wrists, but I'm not putting the bulk of my weight down on somebody's forearm.
And then I'm egg beatering and moving to the side. I'm immediately putting his armpits up on the edge of the pool because his upper body is pretty heavy. I'm pushing down on the forearms as I get out of the pool. It's not very dignified, but it works.
You also want to really make sure that you're taking the time to get your victim in an appropriate hold to be able to lift them out. During National Lifeguard Original courses, I see that lifeguards really take to heart the idea that the rescue should be done as quickly as possible. And I'm not suggesting that we want to loiter and take our sweet time. CPR, early defibrillation, increased chances of survival. There is no question. But respectfully, if this is a real life situation where the victim has already been submerged for an extended period of time, they already likely have a hypoxic brain injury that could cause morbidity or long-term quality of life issues. The main point I want to stress is taking an extra 5 to 10 seconds to protect yourself as a lifeguard, to make sure you have a proper hold on the victim's upper body, whether you have your hands in their armpits or you are grabbing onto the wrists in a chicken wing fashion, taking the time to bob them carefully and then lift them out and drag them back with the assistance of another lifeguard. That is worth your own personal safety than rushing to do something badly. You'll see in one of my examples of what not to do. If I don't have a firm grip on the arms, then I lose traction on the wet skin and I drop them back into the pool, which doesn't help anyone. In a perfect world, you've kind of forklifted them onto the wall.
Okay, for this version, I know what you're thinking. Katie, it's too far away to see anything. Basically, I'm bringing him to the wall. Nothing is different. I'm getting his armpits up on the edge. I'm using my body, my chest behind him to bring him up. And then I'm going to make sure his airway is open because when you're unconscious, you don't want to be leaning forward.
If you have another lifeguard available to hold onto their arms while you get out, that's great. But I have worked in many environments where I was the solo guard or the backup guard might be down the hall in the mechanical room. So at least getting them to the edge myself is something I was trained to do very early on in my career. You will also notice there's no specific way you have to lift someone out of the pool. Historically, yes, in the Canadian Life Saving Society manual, in Bronze Star, Bronze Medallion, Bronze Cross, now called Assistant Lifeguard, we teach the chicken wing lift, but that is not the only way you can do it. Those of you who've watched any number of my National Lifeguard videos before know that I am an advocate for variety in skill set and aptitude. It's not my way or the highway. You know your body best, you know your physical skill set best, you know the environment of the situation best based on the victim type, based on the physical facility. I can't tell you what you're going to do before the situation happens. The next must-see item is effective communication with other lifeguards, victim, patrons, and bystanders. This is going to go back to your lifeguard communication. It's very important you are communicating what you need. If you need someone to call 911, why? Give them the who, what, where, when, why, and how. If you're asking for equipment, be specific. I need the AED and the oxygen if your facility is trained to use oxygen. I need the blanket and the incident report form. I need you to call the front desk and close the facility. Hey, backup guard, I need you to cover my zone and clear the pool. Hey, third guard, I need you to corral these looky-loos into the change room and lock the gate. You need to be really clear with what you need. The next must-see item is effective use of barrier devices, getting out your pocket mask, using gloves at the earliest opportunity, especially because when we think about submersion, as soon as you start to pump on the chest of that submerged victim, if they have a bunch of water in the lungs, that water is going to be frothing, and the likelihood of vomiting or water coming out with bodily fluids is extremely high. It may not be something that was covered in your National Lifeguard course, but if you do any search on YouTube for drowning videos, you will notice quite often victims with CPR have foam, water, liquids coming out of their system. The next must-see item in the award guide for the management of submerged non-breathing victims is an ABC assessment. This needs to be very quick. We are presuming you recovered a submerged victim. They are not breathing. They have not received oxygen for a long period of time. This is 5 seconds maximum to look, listen, and feel. And then EMS is activated at the earliest possible moment. If you have the ability or the skill set to multitask, when you bring your victim to the edge of the pool, you're calling to your bystanders, your backup guards to notify them about the seriousness of the situation. But at this point, you probably know that they are not breathing. So then we do need to start with rescue breaths, which is different from land CPR because they were submerged. We are opening up the airway. We are attempting to deliver 2 rescue breaths. You may need to reposition the airway. There may be water or fluid coming out, but we're watching as we deliver those adult-sized breaths and facing them out to see the chest rise and fall, and then continuing with compressions. 30 CPR compressions. We're following our landmarking down the sternum, basically above the xiphoid process, and compressing so that there is a compression on the heart to move the blood through the body, but also allowing the chest to recoil, and we're not just continuously pushing down. We want to push down, up, down, up, down, up. We're doing 30 compressions to 2 breaths, and that is what we do for CPR until the AED arrives. Once the AED arrives, it's really important we prioritize clipping off any clothing, drying the chest, shaving the chest if necessary, applying the AED because the chances of survival increase dramatically with access to an AED. An AED is not going to magically bring everyone back to life if they're truly dead. There needs to be sufficient electrical activity. The last must-see item is ABC reassessment and the ability to deal with complications such as airway obstruction, vomiting, and gastric distension. This goes back to what I said earlier, whereby somebody who was submerged in the water column for an extended period of time will have water in the chest. And then when we start to do those compressions, we're basically foaming everything inside, and there is the possibility of vomiting. Let's say somebody was chewing gum while they were out in the pool, and that's how they went unconscious initially. Let's go through the notes in the award guide. In case you don't remember, the notes are located down the side, and they're really important context if there is something that is confusing or up to interpretation. The first note says, candidates may practice each of the components of this item separately, but the item is evaluated as a continuous sequence. This is very important. We may be teaching this skill in a phased approach over many days or multiple lessons, but as it says right here in the award guide where we are assessing this skill, we need to see the lifeguard candidate do everything from start to finish successfully to pass this item. Because this is its own item on the test sheet. This is item B. So every national lifeguard candidate in an original course or somebody in a recertification needs to demonstrate aptitude in this skill. Other notes for this particular item say an emphasis is on the candidate's individual skill and ability rather than a team response. Design the evaluation activity to permit each candidate to demonstrate all must-sees. This would be a great example where I, as a national lifeguard instructor, I am looking to see each candidate is able to do this skill from start to finish on their own. This is not an item where I'm looking at lifeguard roles and responsibilities or lifeguard communication. I'm looking at individual lifeguard aptitude. So I want to see a lifeguard candidate, per the notes, able to do all of these elements. If there are other people involved, great, they can assist, but that is not the focus of this item. An important note is that the victim is located between 1.5 meters and 3 meters below the surface. This is a very important note that the submerged victim that you're practicing on, whether it's a classmate, colleague, or a Ruth Lee mannequin at the bottom of the pool, they need to be at a minimum depth of 1.5 meters. So we're talking over 3 feet. What I typically say to my class is that you need to descend down to your feet. I'm 1.8 meters tall, and so I need to descend from the top of my head at the top of the water down to where my feet are. You need to be at a part of the pool where there is that minimum depth met. That may include candidates lying down on the shallow end of the pool or making sure everybody is comfortable working in deeper water. The next note is the item is completed with the candidate carrying a victim of their choice. Wherever possible, candidates should have practice on a variety of victim types to learn about their own personal limitations. This is a very important point. We do want to try and make victim types of comparable size. In a classroom setting, I definitely try and match people up by relative height, size, and weight. In a lot of classes, you will see guys tend to go with guys and girls tend to go with girls. And that is sometimes causing insufficient practice in a variety of victim types. If you are a national lifeguard instructor or anybody running on the job training, I would really encourage you to have everybody try this skill on everyone. I do a particular activity at a lot of the in-services I'm hired to help out with. We do round robin where we're not doing the full rescue, but there are basically 2 lines. Everybody has to rescue the person in front of them and take them to the wall, and then they go back and be the victim. So it gets out of this preference-based scenario where people pick their friends, they pick someone who's light or who's easy to rescue. Everybody should try on everyone. Doesn't have to be successful, doesn't have to be shameful if somebody's heavier than someone else, but everybody should try so they know their own personal limitations and how much further training or practice they need to be able to do this in a real life scenario. Another note is where circumstances permit, rescue breaths may be initiated in the water if complications can be effectively managed. I have certainly seen this come up in workplace scenarios where you're not going to easily get to the pool wall. When I worked at a 50-meter Olympic pool, if we had a long course set up, so no bulkhead at the 25-meter point, you would be swimming probably at least 20 meters, if not further, to get to a side wall. The same thing could happen in a large beach entry like a wave pool where lifeguards are swimming quite a length to get their victim to the wall. It may be appropriate to deliver a rescue breath in the water. This note is saying it's not required in all scenarios, but we can certainly design scenarios that are appropriate to workplace settings where that may be necessary. Another note is that candidates perform the assessment on victim and then switches to a CPR mannequin when ready to perform the resuscitation. For the CPR demonstration, the victim may be an adult, child, or infant. That's basically saying we can use a human or a mannequin for the submerged victim rescue, i.e. bringing them to the surface, to the pool wall, and getting them out onto the pool deck, but we're never performing actual compressions on another human being. The Life Saving Society is saying there's no no substitute for that actual simulation of recoil and compress. So it's very important that in real life, we have a sense of how those compressions may go based on practicing CPR compressions on a mannequin where we can actually push. The last note says donning of gloves should not delay the start of resuscitation. For purposes of this item, an AED is not available. So disregard what I said earlier. We can ask for the AED, but it never arrives metaphorically because we need to demonstrate 10 cycles of CPR, i.e. at least 3 minutes, 300 compressions. The idea is sometimes people get frustrated and spend 30 seconds trying to get their hands that are wet into dry gloves or vice versa. As always, in the award guide, there are further references. So this sends you back to the CLM, which is the Canadian Life-Saving Manual. Chapter 4 talks about the rescue of others, as well as Chapter 7, Life-Saving Priorities, the ABCs of rescue breathing. The main thing I wanted to share in this video is how all of this works together. Sometimes these must-see items in the award guide can feel really overwhelming when you're just starting out as a new lifeguard, or even if you're attending your first recertification after 2 years on the job. You might be thinking to yourself, how do people remember how to do all of this? It's just practice and thinking through, what do I need to do? It's perfectly reasonable to be part of the way through a rescue and realize you forgot to do something. You forgot to call 911. You forgot to clear the pool. You forgot to call for backup. Do it at the point when you remember and just admit to your assessor, whether it's an NLI or a supervisor in an in-service, just let them know that you forgot. As soon as you do it, that's better than not doing it at all. I'm not saying you'll pass that particular round or that particular skill, but it's important that you learn. And if you remember later, then do it later. If you're wondering about how to do better lifeguard scenarios, I have a video on the National Lifeguard playlist about that. If there are any other specific topics that you would like to see as a National Lifeguard candidate or somebody who's working as a lifeguard here in Canada, please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one.